Welcome to this Q&A video. I'm John Townsend, and we're going to be having fun with a really interesting question about biscuits and gravy. Thanks for joining us today with questions and answers. So before we get to the question, I want to talk about Kalamazoo, Michigan this weekend. If you want to meet with, Kevin's going to be there. You're going to be there both days.
Yep.
Kevin's going to be there. I'm going to be there. The Kalamazoo. Ryan's going to be there. Kalamazoo Living History Show is happening this weekend at the Kalamazoo Fairgrounds. If you want to meet with us in person, face to face, shake hands and talk, and maybe even get into a little bit of a video, make sure to come up to the event this weekend on Saturday or Sunday. And
it's what, $7 at the door to get in?
It's $7 at the door. And if make sure you tell them you came to see Townsend's. And if you don't know where we're located, ask them where we're at, and they'll point you in the right direction. It's a wonderful event with a lot of great vendors and some demonstrations going on. Lots. It really is a great event for living history. So
you know, John, for those of you out there who aren't involved in living history, you're not connected, this is a great opportunity. It's just $7 at the door, and it's indoors. And it will expose you to a lot of wonderful people and a lot of really cool things, trades and crafts and groups and so forth.
With very little investment of you personally. You don't have to dress up. You don't have to. You can just see what's going on. Great event. Mm-hmm. So make sure to come if you're in this area. It'll be a lot of fun. So this question came in this morning. This is Thursday morning. Generally, we've already got this shot, and I've got a lot of questions. But this one kind of threw me off, and I said, wait a minute. We're going to concentrate on this today. We're going to do this a little bit differently than we normally do it. This is going to be fun. This is SB Rich Creek. Came in this morning. I think I know this person.
I know that person.
I think we know this person. Anyway, John and or Michael. How far back does American-style sausage, gravy, and biscuits go? Gravy has been made since the dawn of time. Quick breads like American biscuits are really old as well, but I haven't found any reference specifically to the combination in any cookbook prior to the early 19th century. My date cap. Was it a matter of biscuits and gravy were so commonly made and paired that they didn't even need mentioning? Or is it simply a modern dish? Or are my research skills lacking? Biscuits and gravy seem to stem from the South. That's all I've got. Thanks for your insight and videos. Biscuits and gravy. I did some real quick searching. I spent about 10 minutes. I just went on Google, in Google Books. So I looked up the term sausage gravy. I thought that might be an interesting place to go. Sausage gravy. Nothing, and it doesn't show up as a word combination until about 1856 or so. And even in that context, they mean really just biscuit drippings or just the fat left over. Mm-hmm. So sausage gravy isn't anything you can grab onto.
The other side of this combination is the biscuit.
Right,
and
the biscuit.
For some some viewers, you've seen our biscuit videos. Right. But others may need a bit of an explanation. An 18th century biscuit was really different than what we have today. It was more like a cookie, oftentimes even a hard cookie, or like a ship's biscuit that was like rock hard. You couldn't eat it with your teeth.
Biscuit means twice baked.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it's something that's really dry and cracky and all that.
And they would twice bake it to preserve it so that it wouldn't mold.
Right, you're trying to drive out all the moisture. So biscuits in the 18th century were really hard. Obviously, in our context, in North America, biscuits are light and they're like cake.
Yeah, and then in our chemical leavening series, we talked about the Margaretta Curley letter, the American potash cakes, and that seems to be kind of the connection between the 18th century biscuit and the modern day biscuit.
Right. And we've got an episode on the American potash cake where we talk about how that's made. That's a kind of a long story, but that really is where you start to see the makings of the American biscuit start to come into the forefront. That's that letter is dated 1799, so right there, and that probably that concept stretches back into the 1780s and probably before that. in that New York area.
Right.
So that's where we've got the biscuit.
The biscuit. Now back to the gravy.
Gravy.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with gravy? Let's talk about, number one, what gravy is in the 18th century versus what we think gravy is.
Right. Most uses of the word was actually referring to like the drippings of the meat. You would put the meat on a spit, you'd stick a dripping pan underneath, and you would catch the gravy, and then they would use that
Right.
in as an ingredient.
And sometimes they even sliced the meat up, scored it, and then squeezed the gravy out of it. Mm-hmm. So it's not just the oil, but it's the blood and other things that are left in the meat, those juices, those meat juices. And that's what they called in the 18th century gravy.
Now, the physical form of gravy today, where we'll take drippings and thicken it with flour and cream and things like that, they had that back then, but it often went by a different name. The process, sometimes they would use a roux, or they would just take a ball of butter rolled in flour, and they would thicken the gravy into a sauce.
Right.
And it was used in ragouts, fricassees, yeah, or there was a white sauce.
Right, and so they would take that. You don't see white sauces nearly as often, and they tended to go with poultry or something like that. But they'd have white sauces that would have cream in them. Do you have one in there?
Yeah. The Accomplished Housekeeper and Universal Cook by T. Williams. This is 1797. It used veal drippings, and then it was thickened with a ball of butter rolled in flour and cream. Mm-hmm. And so that
is a white sauce.
Yeah, and that's a white sauce, a recipe for white sauce. But that is basically our modern day, a variation of our modern day gravy.
Right. You'll see this kind of other recipes that talk about basically when you get into the 19th century making this white sauce, and they'll say just about any meat, right? It doesn't really matter what meat you're using. You're using the excess drippings or whatever, and you're turning it into this white sauce. And if we're trying to get into this context, this person's dealing with, okay, I'll just say it, Sarah. She's dealing with this early 19th century situation. And if you look in something like the Virginia Housewife, you'll find references to white gravy, which is like this. And she doesn't talk about, Maria Randolph, or Randolph doesn't talk about making the white sauce, or white gravy, but she definitely talks about serving it with these different things.
There's another thing too. Back in the 18th century, there was a fairly common dish. It was called gravy toast, where they would take bread and toast it, and they would either put it in the dripping pan and put it under the meat as it roasted, or sometimes they would like crack an egg on it and then pour either the drippings, or what they call gravy, or a white sauce or something similar on top of it. And so you see this marrying of bread and gravy. Now, is it like what we have today? Biscuits and gravy, biscuits and sausage gravy.
Right.
It's almost like we have this thing over here on this end of the timeline, and then we have this thing over here on this end of the timeline.
Yeah.
And to really know if they're connected, you're going to have to do the research in between and follow the cookbooks. And
so I'll do one other thing. They also had things like lobscouse, where they would take the ship's biscuits and they would beat it up and put it into a stew. There's a bunch of these connections that it could be connected with, right? What I'm looking for, though, is some help with connecting these dots. And I think the comment section is perfect for this. I want you guys to help us with this whole concept. What are we on the right track? How can we track down this concept of biscuits and gravy and really get it close? We've got the antecedents. We got these little the child ideas of biscuits and gravy, and then I don't know if we really get a true biscuits and gravy recipe until the very late 19th century, or maybe even into the 20th century. That's where you can help us. I want you guys to put on your detective hats and help us with this biscuits and gravy idea. And let's see So let's see how far back we can push it and get and connect all these dots.
Now, there's a favor to ask, though.
Yes.
And that is, when we're doing research like this, it's not really all that helpful for someone to chime in and say, well, I think that this, and this occurred, without really having the examples and documentation. And so we're inviting people to chime in on this research, but that's what we're asking for, is research on this. Right.
So you can get a kind of a feel for what we do day to day.
Yeah.
When we're doing our episodes or trying to put together these concepts, we don't just come with mere speculation.
Right.
Even though in the end we have to do some interpretation. We have to actually take all these facts and put them together and try to come up with a semblance of a concept. It still is just a concept.
Right, and speculation isn't bad.
Right.
But you can't conclude with speculation. Speculation is a good way to start your research.
Right. It's like the hypothesis at the start, and then you do the research, and then you come up with the answer. That's what we're looking for. It's like, okay, here's my idea. I think it connects like this. How can I find the research that actually points to this? So I want you guys to help Sarah out, help us out. Let's see what we can find for Biscuits and Gravies. Let's see if we can connect the dots. Chime down into the comment section. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of really interesting information that's going to come through that. And I will say that the only way to really make a good Biscuits and Gravy is to use mushroom ketchup and a little bit of nutmeg. Sets it off. It's really good.
Yeah, and Sarah, give me a call sometime. We need to talk. Okay.
Thank you so much for coming along as we experiment, as we try to come up with these ideas. Everything, all the support we get in the comment section, and when you watch our videos and when you share our videos, it is truly amazing what's going on in the channel. And thank you for this tremendous support. And hey, we haven't forgotten the t-shirts. Don't worry, we're working on it. Thank you so much for what?
Oh yeah, and the questions that we were going to cover, we'll cover those next week.
We'll try to cover those
next week.
They're really
good.
And I'll try to get them in the comment section. I'll try to answer them just in line there for you.
Yeah, and don't forget Kalamazoo.
Don't forget Kalamazoo. Thank you so much for watching today.